Welcome to the Immigrantinlaw channel. Are you planning to relocation to the European Union and want your child to receive a strong education, adapt quickly, and have good prospects for the future? Then you shouldn't choose a country based solely on which one has easier paperwork or lower living costs. For families with children, some of the key factors are schools, language, the quality of education, and how comfortably your child will be able to adapt to the new environment. When a family decides to relocation, they usually focus first on employment, cost of living, taxes, paperwork, and accommodation. These factors are indeed important, but if there is a child in the family, school becomes the focal point of the entire adaptation process. It is through school that a child learns the language, makes friends, comes to understand the culture of the new country, and gradually begins to feel at home. If the educational system suits the child, the relocation will be much smoother. If not, even in a beautiful, safe, and economically stable country, the family may face stress, a loss of motivation, conflicts, and the feeling that the relocation was a mistake. The first factor is age. The transition into the EU education system varies depending on a child's age. For preschoolers, the adaptation process is usually easier. In preschool or a preparatory class, children learn the language through play, interaction, and everyday situations. At this age, it is easier for a child to start speaking a new language without a strong fear of making mistakes. If the child is in elementary school, there is also a good chance of quick adaptation. But it is important to consider how prepared the school is to help foreign children. Are there additional language classes, assistance, adaptation classes, or psychological support? The situation is more complicated with teenagers. At 12, 14, or 16, a child already has an established learning routine, a circle of friends, interests, and plans for exams and college admissions. At this age, it's especially important to choose the country and school carefully because a mistake could result in a lost school year or significant stress. For a teenager, it is essential to understand in advance how their previous education will be credited, which grade they will be placed in, what exams they will face, what language requirements apply, and whether it will be possible to apply to a university in the same country or another EU country in the future. The next key factor is language. In public schools across the EU, instruction is most often conducted in the country's official language. In Germany, it's German, in France, French, in Spain, Spanish, and in Italy, Italian. Many parents think, my child will pick up the language quickly. This is often true, especially for younger children, but quickly doesn't always mean painlessly. It's one thing to learn to communicate during recess, and quite another to understand math, history, and biology and take tests in a new language. Therefore, when choosing a country, you need to assess the language workload. For example, German and French may require more time to reach an academic level. Spanish or Italian come more easily to many children at a conversational level, but systematic support will still be needed for full-fledged academic study. There is another option, international schools. There, instruction may be in English, and the program is often structured according to international standards. This is a good option for families who plan for their child's future education in an English-speaking environment or who may relocate to another country in the future. But it's important to remember, international schools are usually tuition-based and the cost can be high. In the EU, parents usually have a choice between public, private, and international schools. Each option has its pros and cons. Public school is a natural way to integrate. Children immerse themselves in the language more quickly, make local friends, and get used to the country's culture. In many countries, public education is of a high standard, and tuition is free or nearly free. But there are nuances. The quality of public schools can vary greatly depending on the city, district, and even the specific school. In large cities, the choice is wider, but competition is also higher. In smaller cities, things may be more laid back, but there are fewer opportunities for language support or extracurricular programs. Private schools often offer smaller class sizes, more individual attention, additional subjects, and a more flexible approach. But the cost of tuition must be factored into the budget in advance. International schools are a good fit if the child has already studied in English or if the family wants to maintain a more universal educational path. However, they don't always help children integrate deeply into the local community, as their social circle may remain international. Educational systems across the EU differ not only in language but also in their approach to teaching. In some places, there is a greater emphasis on academic rigor and early specialization. In others, more attention is paid to independence, projects, creativity, and psychological well-being. For example, in Germany, the school system is quite structured. Already after elementary school, a child may be directed to different types of schools depending on their academic performance and recommendations. For motivated children, this can provide a strong foundation, but for a child who is still adapting to the language, such a system can be stressful. In Finland, the education system is known for a more gentle approach, a focus on equality, support for the child, and a balance between school and life. But for immigrant families, it's not just overall rankings that matter, but specific conditions: language, city, school, and the availability of adaptation programs. In France, the system is quite academic, with a strong focus on written assignments, discipline, and exams. In Spain and Italy, the approach may seem more flexible and social, but much depends on the region and the school. Therefore, you shouldn't choose a country based solely on international rankings. It's important to understand which learning style suits your child best. Some need a strict structure, some need a gentle transition, some need a creative environment, and some need rigorous preparation for university. When choosing a country for your child, it's important to look beyond the upcoming school year and consider long-term prospects. What comes after high school? What universities are available? Is it possible to apply to universities in other EU countries? What exams are required? In what language will your child be able to continue their education? For example, Germany is attractive for its strong universities, technical programs, and the opportunity to receive a high-quality higher education at a moderate cost. But the path to university requires a good knowledge of German and an understanding of the local school system. The Netherlands is appealing for its large number of programs in English at universities, especially at the bachelor's and master's levels. However, the cost of living and competition may be higher. France offers strong academic traditions and a wide range of fields of study, but the French language will be a key factor. Spain, Italy, and Portugal may be comfortable in terms of climate and lifestyle, and are also attractive to families who value a smoother transition. However, when making a choice, it is important to research the quality of schools in a specific city and admission prospects in advance. Slovenia, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and the Baltic states are often viewed by families as a more accessible gateway to the EU. The cost of living there may be lower, and the adaptation process may be more straightforward. However, the quality of education and prospects must also be evaluated based on the specific city, school, and the child's future plans. One of the most important questions that parents often overlook is, does the school offer support for children who don't speak the local language? A good school for a foreign child isn't just about beautiful classrooms and modern facilities. It's also about a clear adaptation process. Are there additional language classes? Do they help the child with homework? Is there a counselor or teacher who monitors their progress? How does the school respond if the child becomes withdrawn, starts performing poorly in school, or is experiencing stress? Before relocating, it's worth contacting schools in advance. Ask questions, find out if they've accepted children from other countries, how the enrollment process works, what documents are required, if there are entrance exams, and how they determine class placement. If a family chooses a country based solely on the overall level of education but doesn't check a specific school, that's a risk. Because even in a country with a high ranking, you might end up at a school where your child will struggle. Conversely, in a country that isn't at the top of the rankings, you can find an excellent school with strong support and attentive teachers. Education cannot be considered in isolation from the budget. Even if public schools are free, families will still face expenses for accommodation in a good neighborhood, transportation, meals, school supplies, extracurricular activities, language courses, tutors, and additional classes. Sometimes parents choose an expensive country for the sake of a strong education, but then find that most of their budget goes toward rent and basic living expenses. As a result, the child lacks opportunities for extracurricular activities, sports, music, language classes, and exam preparation. That is why it is important to consider not only the cost of school, but also the total cost of living. Sometimes a more affordable country with a good school and stable support turns out to be a better solution than a prestigious destination where the family lives under constant financial strain. An important point to keep in mind, you should choose a country not only based on statistics, but also on your child's personality. If your child is outgoing, makes friends easily, and adapts quickly to new environments, a public school with full language immersion might be a good fit. If the child is sensitive, anxious, or has a hard time coping with change, it might be better to consider a school with a gentler transition, small class sizes, or an international curriculum. If the child is academically strong and plans to apply to a prestigious university, you should choose a system in advance that provides solid preparation and clear requirements. If your child is creative, athletic, or has special educational needs, it's worth looking not only at the general school curriculum, but also at additional opportunities, clubs, extracurricular activities, inclusive support, creative schools, and sports academies. A child is not an add-on to an immigration plan. Their unique needs should be at the center of your decision. The first mistake is choosing a country based solely on rankings. Rankings are useful, but they don't show how a particular child will adapt to a specific school. The second mistake is to underestimate the language. Conversational proficiency and academic proficiency are two different things. Even a gifted child may need a year or two to feel confident studying in a new language. The third mistake is to put off the school question until after the relocation. It's better to figure out in advance which schools are available, what documents are required, and whether there are openings. The fourth mistake is to think only about elementary school and not consider the long-term goal of university admission. The fifth mistake is to choose a country based on advice from acquaintances. Another family may have a different budget, a child of a different age, live in a different city, and have entirely different goals. To choose an EU country based on the quality of education for your child, start with these 5 steps. Step 1. Define your goal. Are you looking for quick adaptation, a strong academic foundation, an international curriculum, affordable higher education, or a comfortable school environment? Step 2. Assess your child's age and language proficiency. The older the child, the more important it is to plan the transition in advance. Step 3. Compare not only countries but also specific cities. School quality can vary significantly within a single country. Step 4. Contact schools in advance and clarify the admission requirements. Step 5. Calculate your budget not only for the relocation but also for the first 2 years of living and schooling. So, the best EU country for a child's education isn't always the one with the highest ranking. It's the country where several factors align: the child's age, language, school system, family budget, support for adaptation, and future plans. For one child, Germany, with its strong educational structure and university prospects, might be the ideal choice. For another, Finland, with its more relaxed approach. For a third, Spain or Portugal, where the family would find it easier to live and adapt. For a fourth, an international school in a country where the parents have long-term plans. The main thing is not to choose blindly. A child's education is an investment not only in a diploma, but also in confidence, independence, social circles, and the future. If you are planning to relocate to Europe and want to understand which country and which legalization route is right for you, submit a request for a free consultation with Immigrantinlaw's lawyers. We'll develop the optimal relocation strategy for you, prepare all the necessary documents, explain the nuances of the law in detail, and answer all your questions. We'll analyze your case, your goals, and your situation without using templates. Want to learn more or start the process today? Contact us. All contact details are listed in the description below this video. We're here to help you take a confident step toward a new life. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ask your questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Discover a world of opportunities with Immigrant in Law.